I'll tell you what has been coming up over and over again in these conversations because of this, time of pause and reconsidering. Artists are doing very innovative and independent things, because there's this sort of shift in the balance, and there's so much innovation required just to make work at all that I feel like everyone's kind of opened the floodgates. But in the process of realizing that, I also realized that you don't notice that you're doing innovation when you're doing innovation, right? You're just doing work.
Trying to survive.
Trying to
Yeah.
survive. Yeah.
Just trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as artists, we're always reinventing, coming up with ways. We're always improvising. Our days are never the same. Our job is never the same. So it's always ebb and flow.
I think we're a very strange hybrid of following rules very well because we have to, because, those countless hours of practice and learning to do things the right way. I mean, that starts in infancy practically. And then we're also deeply curious and, we're always kind of searching for the thing that's right beyond the rules. And it's interesting, I look at your career and I see your career as so courageous, so independent, so innovative. I mean, really, of all of the artists I know, I look at you and it's not possible to define you. It's not possible to sort of categorize you. I feel like, from the outside, it looks like you've always done what you wanted and what you felt. And you've, traveled so much through different traditions or genres, whatever we want to call them. But has that felt courageous? Or again, is this just a question of doing what you do because you're doing your thing every day?
I think that's a heavy question. I've always been clear as to what I wanted, in my life as a youngster. I've been very clear. And I had a very strong mother who would always tell me if someone said, no, that's not possible because you're this or because you're that or because of this, she would always say there's always a way around a roadblock. If you want it, there's a way around it. You can get it. And so going forward in my career and getting older, seeing, okay, it's easy to say, I want this. How badly do you want it? And some of the issues I've had, I think, we put labels on things and people. And I remember when I first started recording for Universal Verve Records, and my very first record, it was just music that I liked, tunes that I liked. And I remember my A&R guy said, well, your record is too all over the place. People aren't going to know what it is you do. And the marketing department is going to have a hard time. They need a story. And in my head, I'm thinking, well, but that's why they're getting paid to figure out the story. And so, why do I? And so I kept saying, I said, this is music I love, music I love. And so then they came up with this, okay, we're going to call it, what is it? Rhythms of the Heart or something like that. And I just thought, why do we have to put a label on it? Why can't it just be music that I love and people listen to it? I didn't grow up listening to one type of music. I don't know anyone who does, really. And I'm always curious. I think because growing up in Detroit, it was a pretty diverse, although it was predominantly Black, but it was very diverse. We had so many immigrants that came over because of the job opportunities with the car manufacturers and also because of Motown. So we had a Greek area. There's an area, Hamtramck, where all the Polish people moved into. We had the largest Chaldean population. And so, I went to school with some of everyone. If I went to their homes, I would taste their foods from their countries or experience their music. And I found all of this fascinating. So it's like, why do I have to just leave all of that out? So I think part of it, I didn't think about it, is just, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to find a way to do it.
I could tell you exactly the same story about my first record. I remember the first time I made a record, I wanted to it was kind of a story album actually, and it was an American record. And I was just like discovering some things about American music and I was so excited to share them. And this was still in the very last days of record stores. So what I was told was, no, you have to write as a classical artist, you have to have an album of that's all one composer. Otherwise, it'll go in the bin that says miscellaneous and no one will find it. But somehow still like I persisted, right? And that's why I say you don't know that you're being courageous when you're being courageous. But I think that you're right. Labels follow you, and I've had to do lots of things to escape the concert pianist label because oh my goodness, that has a whole lot of baggage associated with it. I don't know what's worse, jazz violinist or a concert pianist. Those are like
Concert pianist, you win. You win. That's it, even concert violinist is just yeah, you win on that one. I don't even think jazz violinist. I think what people think what is a jazz violinist and what you're supposed to. I just like to say I'm a violinist because I love, violin. There's violin or an instrument that violin is related to in almost every culture of music.
when I look at women, the women who came before us in this business, I think about them the same thing that I think about my younger self. I'm like, how did they pull that off? How did these women manage to have an authentic musical voice? How did they not have that beaten out of them by an industry that wanted them to conform to one thing or another? And it looks like huge amounts of courage to me, but maybe it was survival in the same way.
Yeah, and maybe survival is courage. I took over a camp that pianist Jerry Allen, before she passed, she set up an all women's camp for young women 14 to 26 who were interested in pursuing jazz as a profession. And it's important for me that they understand all of this about what so many of the older women, especially, went through. Um, Being women, being African American women, just, yeah.
I think they had each other. I hope they had each other. I I'm finding myself turning into this fierce mama bear like, about all that kind of stuff, because I had no women ever helping me ever in my musical life. Well, my very first teacher was a woman and I adored her, but that relationship stopped when I was so little. But later in my life, when I was in my heart of my studies, the one female teacher I had was actually really toxic because I think she had been so discouraged from her ambitions that she had this weird sort of jealousy thing. So all I want to do these days is show up for the next generation and especially the next generation of women and, give them that support and that confidence. Because I still think I see a discrepancy, an imbalance in the kind of confidence, at least that is projected. And I think that young women, they really need to be heard and seen, valued.
They need to be heard, seen, and encouraged. I, it's whenever I go into schools and work with a jazz band, I can count on half my hand the time that a female jazz musician will say, yeah, I want to take a solo, or the way they count off a tune. I'm like, okay, they're going to be okay. I think young men see older musicians. There's a vibe, a way musicians act. There's this whole thing. And because there are so few women for instrumentalists, no matter what genre, how do you act? How do you have that courage to do this? What are you feeling inside? And I think it's important for young students to know. And I tell them, yeah, I'm scared to death a lot of times when I go on stage. I'm nervous, I'm this. But you have to wear the mask and go on. So some kind of way we have to get to these young women, and they need to be around us more so they can see. You don't have to come out swinging. You don't have to come out and be like, so, but you do have to assert. You have to have some confidence, or even show that, even if inside your knees are shaking.
Yes. It's so beautiful. I'm so happy that you and I are working on this Abby Lincoln song, Caged Bird. Oh, there's a metaphor. But, to think about making this music with you and to think about young women and girls seeing this hearing this interpretation of this really powerful song by such a powerful writer, performed by two women who, feel at home and confident and sure in our choices and our lives. That's a history changing thing. I think that, when we talk about not seeing it while it's happening, but I think maybe we should stop for a moment and realize that that's a remarkable thing.
I say the universe puts people in our lives for a reason. That was so empowering. And what a force she is.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, all of them. I know that that courage has come at a cost, but I'm so grateful for all of these badass women who just, held on at whatever cost and left us such beautiful legacies, such beautiful things, music, ideas.
Words to live by. You can do this. You have to keep pushing forward.